All right, so we'll get started. Welcome everyone to Poet at Spring, featuring our very own Lanre Oranyeli. We're very excited to have you here today. Thanks for joining us. My name is Damola Shola. I am the co-founder and CEO of Sprinng. I will moderate today's interview and event with Lanre Oranyeli. Lanre Oranyeli is the author of Caricature of Colors and She is Life. I'm going to give a little more information about Sprinng. For the new people here, Sprinng was founded in 2016. Sprinng fosters a thriving network that empowers diverse African writers, amplifies their voices, and celebrates their literature. We run several programs and offer opportunities to African writers. This is a 45 minutes to an hour event, depending on the vibe we're getting. We'll start with introductions and an interview with Lanre Oranyeli, followed by a reading of his works and him sharing insights into what inspired them. Then we'll wrap up with a Q&A from our guest, which is you. Since this is a webinar, please drop all your questions for Lanre or even for Sprinng in the Q&A box throughout this event so that we won't miss anything that you're asking, and we will make sure we try to get to all the questions you ask. And now I will be moving to reading Lanre's biography. Olanrewaju Oranyeli is an IT analyst and author of Caricature of Colors and She is Life. He was born in Lagos, Nigeria, and spent most of his teenage years there before moving to South Africa. Caricature of Colors is an anthology of simple poems that paint pictures relating to life, love, family, and relationships. The words displayed on each canvas take you on a journey of discovery, knowing that we are all similar yet different in our existence. She's Life is a collection of relatable poems and prose that delve into human condition we all face through life and our interactions with one another. The book splits into two parts, the first part being life and how we journey into circumstances around family, friends, and relationships while trying to make sense of it all. The second part is She, which addresses the duality we find in ourselves through our reflection in glimpses of relationships we hold dear. I'm very excited to have you here, Lanre, and this is a long overdue event. For those who don't know, I've known Lanre for I think about 7 years now, or even much more, because we started connecting before I think Sprinng started. And yeah, I remember we used to have like I think a WhatsApp group chat where we send each other's work, get feedback. It's always so delightful to see each other's growth throughout this journey. And I'm very grateful and privileged to have been familiar with your works. And your works is one of those things whereby it's forever memorable. It's something that helps people gain a different and unique perspective of life, the chaos and the peace of it, and the joys of life. So thank you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. For the audience, if at all at any point you're struggling to hear us, we want to know. So please use the chat. I'm going to start with the first question. I and several writers within the Sprinng community have had the privilege to know you and engage with your work. One of the benefits of such is that we get to see each other's growth, not just in our craft, but in the intimate interactions with our lives and our values. When you think of your work 7 years ago, reflecting on your first book, the second book, and what you write now, what wisdom has helped you transition throughout these phases?
Okay, phases. I like the word you use, phases, because phases are seasons too, right? So in my head, time is cyclic and it's not linear. So, and what do I mean by that? It means in my head that your values are often your foundation and they remain the same. So maybe my values are love, kindness, respect, and things like that. They will remain the same. However, the way we convey them through the seasons now differs depending on your experiences and where you are. So I would say that I would say like it's changed a lot. My because my writings are not as quick as they used to be. The gestation period is a bit longer. Like it takes longer for me to put out stuff. Now I deliberate, I think about it, I think about the different perspectives that could come out of it and what they might gather, depending on who is reading it or even what I can learn from what I've written. So yeah, that is how much my things change. And sometimes I go back and read stuff that I've written and I laugh like, you know, why did why did I say that? Because obviously my perspectives have changed, but I'm accepting of that because if you are not able to go inside and then go outside and look at your yourself retrospectively, then you are not growing. So yeah. So I think it's just it takes a longer period for me to churn out things now.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's the
This
difference.
is this is so great to hear. We have a lot of young writers in our community, and one of the things that when our mentors reflect on their experience, they share is that they are now at the point whereby they're learning to be patient with their work, like you said. I also remember my own experience of writing. I always just wanted to post to make sure that everybody is seeing my work. Now it's like I want to sit a little bit with what I've written. I want to know if this is really how I want to communicate what I intend. I want to know if there's any potential of misunderstanding from this work and all that stuff.
Mm,
So I get it now. And I remember even in your early works, I used to pressure you because I want to read your works and I used to pressure you to share something with us and even your books. But the older
yeah,
that I have become, the more I've just sat back into this place of
yeah,
I
yeah.
understand. I
And you're
understand.
more confident, so
Yeah,
you can stay
yeah.
as long as you want.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
great to hear. So my second question is one of the things that drew me to your early writings was your attentive insight into life. When you used to have an Instagram account, which we'll talk about in a bit, you would write lengthily and with profound captions that made people think differently about life. It's impressed me how people engaged with your content, and it was because of your intentionality with words. You could get away
Yeah.
with being a creative nonfiction writer and even a short storyteller, yet of all these genres, you picked poetry and you still use poetry over and over again. Why poetry?
Um, I tend I'm a Pan African. I'm a Nigerian, yeah, through and and you'd realize that when we're growing up, like my parents or my relatives they used to talk a lot. We would use proverbs most of the time, and proverbs are normally short, but they are far-reaching. Like you would say something short, but it's far reaching, it's much more applicable to you than what somebody was saying, like a whole page of stuff that somebody was saying. So and from then on I would like it piqued my interest, and so I just enjoyed it, saying like quite short things and that were quite meaningful. And I had a pensive mother, so my mom was always very pensive, like and I'll ask her questions and she wouldn't give me long answers. She might just give she might just say something like, like just say an idiom or something, proverb or a parable, and I'll have to sit with it and and make sense of it. So and that was what led me to obviously poetry. And I'm like, oh, so there's a form too that kind of imitates that, and now go into it and then I started using poetry. Like, okay, it's a good means of communicating what I want to, at least in the formal sense of it. Because so yeah,
You know, one thing that's interesting, since you bring the topic of culture into this, uh, in Nigeria, you know, we can say and it will mean so many things, and
yep,
that was one of the things I could connect. I mean, even right now, it's one of the things I deeply connect with my poetry in that I want to be able to present situations whereby the character doesn't need to say much and you will get what the character is saying. Or even like when
yeah,
an African mother, where you're trying to ask your African mother, where should I put this? And they say, come and put it on my head. That
yeah,
seems like come and put it on my head, but if you know what's good for you, don't.
yeah.
So
I want to say something. Sorry, I want to say something. I, oh, I would say I'll be talking, I'll be rude, and my mom would look at me and say, "Anyway, go," and that means that you're like if you're a Yoruba person, that you know what that means. That
Yeah.
almost means like, oh, you so you're big enough to say whatever comes to your head now, you know. So it's like, yeah. So sorry, I cut you off. Go on,
Okay.
please.
That's great to hear. I'm going to switch into a little bit about publishing your works. I know 15 to 20 years ago, the experience of becoming a writer, let alone a poet, it has transformed, especially in our continuous engagements with the digital world. A writer today has to not just think of publishing a book that adds credibility to their work, but drive engagements through social media with their craft. You did this for a while using social media, posting, especially I think on Instagram, and then you disappeared. Why and what were you afraid of losing or joyous of becoming and gaining by choosing to further your artistic journey outside social media? And to add to this question, I think it's necessary for writers to learn the alternative options available to them because I know
Mhm.
with the pressure of a new social media platform coming up, everybody wants to stay updated. And I recently wrote a piece titled A Quiet Life is Still Existence, just to add to that comfort of letting people know that even if you decide to not use social media, what will still sell will still sell. So yes, I'm curious, what were you afraid of losing or joyous about becoming or gaining that made you choose that alternative option and path with your writing?
I like what you said. You said a quiet life is still existent. In fact, it's a lot more existent because um, for me, the social media became a lot of noise, like a lot of noise, lot of opinions. Why aren't you posting a lot? Why aren't you? And I do it for myself. I do it because I enjoy it. I don't do things that I don't enjoy. So I've known that since I was like a kid. Like, if I'm not enjoying it, then there's no point, right? So yeah, and even if you are going through hard things, you are going through them because of what you are going to enjoy in the end. So that's how I've always viewed things. So when the noise became too much, I was just like, after all, it's my passion. So it's my passion. It's not anybody's passion. So I can do with it what I want. And if social media is going to make me write more, make me write less rather, and control the way I'm writing, then I'd rather write it for myself. And the people that really want to read my stuff will look for me and say, "Oh, Larry, what have you been writing lately?" And then, and then I'll send it to you. Or if you go to my status on WhatsApp, you'd often see me sometimes. I'll post up some new things.
Mhm.
Um, that I've been writing, and it's very relevant to me. Like, okay, this is what's going on in my life or in my friend's life or somebody else's life, from a discussion. So it's much more personal, it's much more intimate as opposed to, putting it where people are pressuring you, okay, or they want to see your pictures instead. Like they're just concerned about your pictures that you've posted and you're trying to say something in your caption, but it's not reaching people because of how you look or your tone pants you're wearing. So
Yeah.
it's so that was the reason I was like, yeah, and I'm shy. I'm a shy person. So I'm just like, okay, fine. Like, yeah, it's better for me to be. I'll still exist in quiet, as you say.
Mhm.
Um, and I'll still be fine. It's my passion. I have a job. It's not like it's if it was even feeding me, I think I would have still taken that route, you
Mhm.
know. So yeah, so those were my reasons. Um, yeah.
That's so peaceful and calming to hear. And I think it will help someone out there because there is more news and videos on how to promote yourself and put yourself out there. And it's like sometimes you just need to take that step back or even take that step forward in your case because it helps in certain areas. One
Mm,
of the things that I'm curious, and I'm asking this on behalf of the demographic that Spring serves, we serve a lot
mhm.
of young writers, and many of them are in their early professional careers, which may or may not be writing related. Many of them are experiencing personal conflicts about what to study, what job to pursue, and what relationships to prioritize when embracing their writing identity. So tell me about your early writing years. What chaos or confusions or difficult things did you have to figure out as you were navigating this journey? And what difficult decisions did you have to make, especially when it comes to your professional career, and even just your personal life and your writing?
So one thing I would say is that to a lot of people is that most of our passions don't pay the bill. That's one thing I didn't learn early. So you might be passionate about something. I'm passionate about poetry, but it doesn't mean it's what I have to earn from, or it has to sustain the lifestyle that I'm going to live. And that is where a lot of people get it wrong. The idea is for you to put your head down and say, what are the other things that I can do that can also sustain that? Because I didn't have a billionaire dad that would say, okay, I can fund your passion. And I love singing, okay, because we have lots of musicians out there, it's their passion, but they can't make money out of it, and so people stick with that. And then, and in my head, I don't believe we are born with just one gift. You are born with a lot of gifts depending on how open-minded you are.
Mhm.
So really need to be open-minded, and see every other person's perspective, however how dumb it is, as a potential advice. Because you never know when you're going to get your eureka moments to be able to fund your passion. So and I was, my heads were in the clouds. I like writing. These are the I enjoy it. But it doesn't mean it's going to pay the bills. So you have to be able to compartmentalize your life. Okay, that this friend I have here is the one I can say these certain things to. That one I can't say these things. And this part of my life is for fun. When I go to the office, I have fun too. I enjoy it, but I know it pays my bills. My approach towards it is going to be different. So you have to compartmentalize your life in such a way that your approach differs. You have to wear different masks for different occasions, But at the background, don't forget who you are, Don't forget what you stand for. Don't forget what your values are, So that's the advice I would give anyone, like, as a youth, that know what your values are, stand by them. But on the surface, you can have a three-story building on top, of one bungalow, a skyscraper, depending on what works for you. But don't forget what your values are, and don't ever back down on standing on them unless they need to also be changed, right? If your values are not sustaining your present, needs, then you have to change them. So that's the advice I have to give. Compartmentalize your life.
Gosh, that's so insightful. It reminds me of a quote I heard someone say, money is like the sixth sense that allows you to enjoy the five others. When you have money, you can go on the beach to write your poetry. You
Yeah, it
can go
makes
on a
life.
beach to write your poetry without having to worry about, is my bills paid, is my anything paid. And I know a lot of writers, especially coming from an African background, you have a lot of parents or even family members and well-meaning mentors that tell you you can't writing doesn't pay the bill. And I know we're trying to change that narrative because there are careers in writing that can lead to success. I remember for my own experience, and even going to my pursuing my university education, I first studied psychology and then I studied organizational behavior and change. And now I'm doing my master's in creative writing. The journey is different for everyone. And I know for sure that if I had chosen writing, this is not to say don't choose writing first. If I had chosen to, let's say, study creative writing first, there are several opportunities and learning experiences that I may have missed compared to when I chose to study something that was general to start with, to connect with a lot of people, explore my perspectives, and then see what interested me the most. So I was saying I met someone who worked in at a top publishing company, and he was working with young adult books. And when I asked him what he studied, then I was still experiencing identity crisis about what to study, and with the mindset
Mm,
that what I study will determine my future career and goals. And then he said he studied physics. And I was so amazed that, well, how can you study physics and end up in publishing, reading books that don't concern physics? And it was like,
mm,
life is not linear. Like, you can do a lot of things. We live in a world whereby what you study doesn't have to determine where you work 5 to 10 years from when you graduate. So you can do a lot of things. And even when I became much older and I started reading authors, like this guy that wrote Mastery, I've forgotten his name, Robert Greene, that's his name. I have his book right here.
Robert
Robert
Green.
Greene, he talks a lot
Yeah.
about how he worked almost over 60 jobs before he eventually wrote the first book that changed his whole career and life trajectory.
Mm,
So it was open. So keep the book open, explore as many things that life offers you to learn, and then
mm,
find your way from there. So thanks for sharing that insightful perspective. I'll go to the
welcome.
next question. I remember your hesitations about publishing your books. Unlike other writers, whereby publishing their first book, they're always excited and just want to get it out there. Yours was more so a calmness of, I think I still need a little more time, and then you published it at the right time. Um,
Mhm.
what would you say to writers when it comes to publishing their books? From your perspective of someone who published at a much older age, what wisdom and insights would you give to that experience, and advice would you share to young writers?
Um, so now it differs, right? From when I did things, And so in my head, you have to also kind of know what other people are doing. What are they doing? What are the writing styles people are, enjoying? What is the attention span of the people that like your work? You have to go into more data. Like you have to drive it from a more data driven perspective before you do stuff. So when I did mine, it was from a place of comfort, like, okay, now I'm comfortable to do this. Like, okay, I feel okay, I've sat on it long enough, and it's been edited, people have read it, and I've had enough validation that the whole validation I've wanted is now there. So I'm now like, okay, fine. But I think in this day and age, you need to look into a lot of data before you now decide that, okay, this is when I want to do it. Obviously, you can't go and release your book when somebody like Rupi Kaur is releasing hers. So 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 it's like, so you have to be much more aware, like when you are doing things. So that's one thing I'll tell people, like, be much more aware if you are going to embark on that. I don't know if I answered the question, if
No, you
what you
did.
asked.
You did perfectly. I interned at publishing companies, three of them, and as an editorial intern, one of my responsibilities was any book proposals that come in, do research and data about the journal, the themes. Are there any relative titles or themes? What's making the book
Mm-hmm.
sell well? Is this book repeating something that has already been said or giving a new
Yes.
meaning to it? When I saw the process and the first templates that I was given to be able to complete this assignment over and over again,
Mm,
it made me realize that writing is not just vibes and prayers. Publishing is not just vibes and prayers. Successful authors, they are strategic with publishers. Publishers come from the data perspective and they have all these numbers at the back
yeah,
end to be able to
yeah,
back up and prove why
yeah.
this book will be able to sell 30,000, 70,000,
Yes.
1 million copies. So they're not just accepting any books based on feelings. And so when I see people even post about rejections from publishers, while your book can be the best book ever, if they don't have data to back up and prove why this thing will be a successful
I
publishing
agree.
opportunity,
Yeah,
then you
yeah,
may not get it. So
yeah.
you answered the question perfectly well. I think every writer, when you've done the creative work, needs to distance themselves from their creative work, to put that book aside, to now look at the research and data to say, okay, this is why this book is worth publishing at this time.
Yep, yep.
Yes, yes, you gave the quick response to it. It is conventional to ask every writer for their next goal, aspiration, or dream. We're always pursuing something new, different, and exciting. It not only gives us a sense of pride, but a feeling of fulfillment when we accomplish the next thing. However, I'd like to turn this question around, especially knowing the depth of your work in amplifying the meaning and purpose of our lives. What's chasing after you that makes life and writing worth it? That's
A
deep.
different perspective.
Yeah.
It's a different perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I think um, as Africans, and I would say as a Nigerian, when a person gives you a different perspective, you think it's a challenge,
Mm.
but it's another way for you to open up a part of your awareness that is not open. So everybody's perspective is valid, as I've said before. And so for me, that's why it's worth it, because I could write something and lo and behold, I'm thinking about it in this direction. And depending on who reads it, the person gives me a totally different perspective that's different from my aim. And they're like, oh, this is the best thing I've read. And in my head, I'm thinking, but that wasn't the intent when I was writing it. So that is what drives me. That's what makes it worth it, because it's a blessing. I see a different perspective as a blessing all the time. And it drives change. So for me, it's that simple. It's not that complicated. When I write, I just want to hear what somebody else has to say that is different from what I've put out there. So that's why it's worth it for me. Yeah.
I think this is one of the best guest interviews that I've done, because I feel very privileged that I've been able to get a personal experience with you and gain from your wisdom, but to now get to share it with much more people is
Wow.
very delightful. One of,
Um,
to capture what you said perfectly, you don't have to fight everything that opposes you. Sometimes keep your arms wide open. And I also think I worked as a book reviewer for a bit, and one of the things that I used to enjoy from the experience of writing book reviews is seeing what else the author didn't intend that the book did successfully well. And so
yeah,
you don't, when you're reviewing or reading a book, you don't have to always look for everything that the author likes or intended. You can look at it from a different eye and also give your opinion on it. So yes, this is so insightful to hear. Thank you.
okay.
Um,
That's great.
my next question is this. The other day, I asked a friend about how exhausting the grandiose announcement of our becoming can sometimes be. For example, I now dislike going to LinkedIn, except if there is something I have to do on that platform. While I am happy for others and the good news they share of their lives, the language of this pride is now cliche. With all the titles and
Mhm.
affiliations, it sometimes feels like life is just a rat race that everyone is trying to catch up on. Then the wheels turn, and then the top becomes the bottom again, and then the race continues over and over again. In a world full of all these titles and accolades, sometimes it's not the person at the top that's easy to spot, but the simple
Yep.
person of value and contentment. You describe yourself as a simple person. I remember every time I ask you for your bio, it's like, my bio is simple, just two, three sentences, that's all. And yet it says a lot about you. Why choose this path? What's so satisfying about simplicity that makes it a right path for you?
So um, simplicity, it costs a lot in the beginning,
Mm,
but it's sustainable over a longer period of time. So when everybody is growing up, it's like, you have a lot of external, you're overwhelmed with external sensitivities. Like, you're hearing, you're seeing, everything is so externally, we identify with things externally too much that we grew up that way. And over time, in fact, it's always been there. And I realize that, wait a minute, whatever it is I'm looking for, is inside already. You know, because I'm the kind of person that if I'm feeling overwhelmed, I take a walk. I'll make videos of bees. I like gardening. I like, watching the sunrise. I like looking at the stars, So those things is part of is part of me. It's part of the existence I come from. So for me, it's always been simple. Even people tell me you're always happy or you're always in a good mood. And for me, it's just like, why shouldn't I be happy? Like I can't pay for it. It's free. I don't need to buy it. So so for me, it's innate. It's always been there. And the older I get, the more I believe I'm doing the right thing. And as I said, I don't do stuff I don't enjoy. So I've always known that, like everything I do, even the job I do apart from writing, I enjoy it. Like I enjoy my teams, I enjoy my colleagues. So simplicity comes as innate for me. I don't know how else I'm going to explain it, but as far as I'm concerned, it's available to everybody. It's just, but we are too caught up. Like, what car is that person driving? What's the next thing that person is doing? And the thing is, your heart. So your heart beats without you thinking about it. It knows what to do, whether you like it or not. It's beating. Your nose smells. So the least you can do is to do the things that will make your heart beat more efficiently, make your nose smell. So if it's just chilling, relaxing, enjoying the simple things of life, then if those things are free, then why not? Why must I get caught up in the complications of life? What is that person wearing? What's that person saying? What are these? It's I get bored easily. So when you're saying something and I know where you're going already, it's almost like, let's get there. Let's keep it simple and let's move on. Like this. So solutions are simple in my head for me. Like people will cry over. I'll be like, Benny or guy, or this thing is simple. Like, why don't you? Then I'll give a different insight, and the person will be like, but why didn't I think about it? But in my head, lots of things are easily resolved. They are simple, but we just complicate it because that is our nature.
Mhm.
So I don't know how else I would explain it, but
You've
I'm
explained it
that guy.
perfectly.
Yeah.
You explained it perfectly. This Yoruba
Yeah.
saying, "Eni tó bá mọnú ro á mọ̀ pẹ́dá," which means if you
Ye-
know how to think, you know how to be grateful. You're a very
Yes.
thoughtful person, which makes you very grateful for the simple things of life that people just skip
Mm-hmm.
over. So
Mm-hmm.
it's
That
great.
is true.
This is super great insight. I'll wrap up with one more question before turning it over to you to share some of your wonderful
Okay.
poetry with us. You write a good amount in reflection of the most influential people in your life, your mom for one, and I know there are
Mm-hmm.
many more people to count. I once saw a quote: "If a poet falls in love with you, you will live forever." In a fast moving world where it's easy to forget and be forgotten, I want to ask if you have any insights on this. How does one become someone worth writing about, and what values mean the most to you when you think of such people like your mom?
So I would say Yami, that's my mother in Yoruba, and I would say Orishami, Neka, that's a mother that is much more than life itself. And then I'll say, I want to jawe ka to jawe, I want to
Mm.
wegbo ka to wegbo. So I'm venerating my mother. So it's an impression. Everything in life is an impression. If something doesn't impress on you, then you don't um, immortalize it. You don't, it doesn't mean anything. So, and how would I say? So, apart from my mom, I always tell you, like, there's nothing I won't write about as long as it gives me an impression. I've written about a bird before. I write about plants in relation to human beings. I write about the sun. I write about stars, the clouds, how seasons affect us. So in my head, anything that gives you an impression, you are doing it a disservice if you don't convey it in ways that it would never die. So and poetry does that for me. So it helps me immortalize things, even the things I like. Even when we're talking, by immortalizing our thoughts into somebody else. So it's a natural thing. It's a natural thing for you to impress upon others what your beliefs are. And you can do it through poetry, through the words you say. Some people do it through the food they cook, and other people enjoy it. And so, yeah, it's yeah. That's what I would say.
You've definitely impressed on us today. Thank you so much for answering these questions and sharing your
Yeah.
thoughtful perspectives. I'm going to step aside now for you to read some of your poems. And to my dear audience, please, as it's reading, don't hesitate to use the chat to share your favorite lines, titles, or anything else that excites you about the poems. So feel free to use the comments as needed. Thank you, Larry.
Okay. I'm just trying to see how long I have for this because we've talked a lot, Winnie and I. So, okay, I'll just read a few poems. Um, and I'll go to my book, Caricature of Colors, and I'll delve into the different ones that, come to mind. So, I'll start with this one. So, the title is Underrated. So, it says, we are humans that sneeze out clouds in the mornings, yet beg in the day for it to give us rain. We are humans who exhale fireflies in the nighttime and watch them scatter as we look for light. We are humans in the image of God who walk many paths on mangled hands and knees, looking for what we can find in ourselves. So I think that goes without saying. It just talks about how we are so much in tune with what is out there, and we forget that everything we need is actually in us. And so that's the first one I'll read. And the second one says, the title says Still Waiting. So it goes like this: how long will I dance to gather wrinkles that weigh too heavy for my mortal pockets? How long will I dance until my joints corrode and shake the bones in my body into irregular impulses? How long will I dance knowing wisdom loves aging, for solitary moments dull down years as my body succumbs to life's tears? How long will I dance until your reflection greets you and your footsteps grow towards me? For I have danced alone long enough. So this is for somebody who has been waiting for somebody else to find them. So yeah, that's what this is about from my perspective, but I'm sure others can draw inferences in their own way. Okay, this one is interesting. What is it called? It's called Time. When I wrote this a long time ago, I might have even written it differently. So it says, you cannot be 18 always. Pinking lips, lush like plum, ripe breasts, defying gravity, with hormones raging against order and body heaving to the call of adventure. You cannot be 26 always. Passion clinging to your body, pockets hungry for a lifestyle, with eyes dotted on rich mates, and time flirting with high heels and hangovers. You cannot be 34 always, finding many gods in life's philosophy, painting moments with careful brush, solving life's elusive equation and biting your tongue to show sobriety. You cannot be young anymore. When waist trainers are an accessory, fashion forgets the color you wear. Technology becomes a foreign affair. Aware eyes and eyes know your graying hair. And as you realize that love is the only wisdom left. So I really like that one. Yeah, and it just talks about time, aging, and how time flies, and if time is not taken, you are forgotten because you've also forgotten yourself. So that was the intention there. And then I'm going to read from something that is something that is much more recent. Okay. The next one, I'm not giving the title. It's just something that I wrote, and it was because of something that happened. So this one says, you have crawled out of the past like an old secret the lips have forgotten to keep. And without hesitation, you greet me with the heaviest burdens you carry, in hopes that the years lost between us is enough to cushion your troubles. But you do not realize that my silence and welcoming smile is not an invitation for you to add the weight that life has already piled up on top of me. So these are for, and this happened to me because of an engagement I had with somebody that was in my past, and they came and but but they came with other intentions, which I wasn't happy with. So it's about boundaries and respect too. Okay. Okay. Let me. Okay. I've been going through things that are serious. So let me go into things that are a bit lighthearted. So this one says, I paid attention to all your words and every gesture you made as the night slowly ran its course. You were like a firefly in the dark, and I, a curious little kid, openly flirting with your luminescence. And as the morning found us in each other's arms, we both knew that we were different paragraphs that belonged to the same page. So this one, this one was very personal. But what I infer from it is that it's not everyone that you spend time with that you have to stay with. So that's that there. So I think I'm going to read a few more because of time, and then yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying it. So this one too is very personal. So it says, there are times I stumble on a dream full of familiar faces that remind me of where I'm from. I'm welcomed with smiling mouths full of decaying teeth and condescending tongues. Bodies ooze of jealousy, the eyes cringe with disgust, and I am reminded that this is not home anymore. So this talks about people that, smile and then, okay, I can see that Owen says I have 3 minutes left. They have other intentions. So it just talks about envy. And you have 2 types of envy, a passive and active one. We are all envious, but I believe I have passive envy, and some people have active envy. So they this one is very personal to me. He says Bawoni Okomi. That's in Yoruba, and it says, how are you, my dearest? Sho Sundada, that means, did you sleep well? Shoti well, that means, have you taken a shower? Shoti Finkosi, that means, have you eaten? And then I say, Iyami, that means my mother. I've fallen too many times, and sometimes I feel washed up amongst a sea of men, but thoughts of you lead me to the shore. And I have been lost many more times, like a wayward drunk who often forgets where he came from, but your compass guides me home. So you are here now. How long will you be here for, Iyali? And then she says, I will be here until your eyes open, and I will not leave until you wake up again. So this is for my mom, and this is and I believe that dreams are a way that we unconsciously um, try not to forget. So this was a dream I had that I tried to translate into poetry as much as I could. So because we create statues and all that just to remember, and I think dreams help us um, to not to forget as well unconsciously. So yeah, I'll stop there. Great.
Gosh, this is so profound. And I'm happy. I'm so happy that other people get to read your work and listen to your work and see the beauty that we have seen in it all along this year. So thank you. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn to the questions that people have asked in the Q&A. Feel free to drop more questions if you have any. So someone said, I have a question for you. Plagiarism is becoming a thing in the African literary space. I've heard about shadow writing, which is more or less getting inspired by a writing piece and then mimicking it. So
Mhm.
please, can you share more light on the theme of plagiarism and how writers can learn and imitate people's works but never plagiarize? You've served as a mentor, I think, once or twice for the Sprinng Writing Fellowship. And I
Mhm.
think your perspective will be valuable on this. So, any thoughts on this?
Uh, so I'll start with saying that you have to understand that there's nothing that you're going to say that somebody has not said before. That's where I'm going to start from. And so um, you need to be cognizant of that. However, you also need to try to create things in your own particular way, because in the first place you're going into writing, and you have a unique gift that you've been given to write things your own way. So don't be carried away by you can get ideas, that's fine, but you need to write things in your own way, And I've seen my work plagiarized, but it didn't really bother me. I'm like, I know I'm the one that wrote it, so because I wouldn't chase after the person. But essentially, I think it's an ethical thing. You owe it to yourself. You owe it to yourself not to do that because you know it's unethical and it could have far-reaching consequences for you. So I think I'll leave it at that because it goes without saying. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. I'm just going to add something else to this. Um, Especially creating the Spring Writing Fellowship with the Spring team. One of the things that we've seen for developing writers is that you learn by imitation. So it's just like being a baby. Before a baby learns to walk independently, the mother or father puts them in between their legs and try to guide them to walk bit by bit, bit by bit. Um, the place where imitation crosses the line is when you're no longer walking in your footsteps and grow out of it. And with technology, things are different these days. Even using simple tools like Grammarly, you can use it to scan your work to see if it's something that someone else has said exactly the way you're writing it for you to know how to rephrase. And one of the other things I'll share is this: not everything you write has to be published. If you read something or write something and you think, this looks too much like someone else's work, although I've been inspired by it, I don't think it's right or fair to this person who has this original idea. It's fine to keep that piece to yourself. Writing is a practice, an ongoing practice, and imitation is a good tool, but don't misuse it. So thanks for sharing your perspective on that, Larry. I'll go to the next question. um what inspires your writing and how easy it is or hard it is to create your own words and let them flow on paper, particularly as it relates to writing poems? Also, what advice would you give someone who aspires to write a book or novel?
So for me, um, I write about everything, and sometimes I tend to be sleeping and then I dream about words and I have my note next to me and I wake up and I quickly pen it down so that I don't forget. So for me, it comes that way. But as I said in the beginning of the interview, I'm more deliberate about it because I know there's a gestation period, so that happens. So for me, everything inspires me. A cup of tea. I like now I'm talking to you and something has already come, which I have to also just write. So so it just flows. You have to be open, like and turn inanimate objects, make them animate them. Like you could talk about stuff that make water come alive. Make a pencil that is draining its ink, turn it into something else. So you can use everything around you, right? So there was another question you asked after that.
What advice would you give someone trying to write a book or a novel?
Oh well, as I said earlier, once for you to be wanting to write a book, you know that you already have a passion for something. So don't relent on your passion. Even when the embers are low, because the fire can look like it's dwindling. Don't relent and give yourself time, pace yourself, be patient with yourself, and also seek mentorship. You need to seek people that have walked that a path before so that you don't make the same mistakes they've made, and understand that you're not alone. You're not alone in the journey, like all the time. So and as I said, be aware for when you want to publish. Data is important. Those things. So that's the advice I would give. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, One of the things I want to chime in to what you said about writing your ideas and even the idea that just came to you.
Mhm.
So Akademi always encourages writers like have a notebook or something all along with you. We have
Yep.
technology which makes things better. You have a notes app on your phone. Always write out. It doesn't have to be a fully formed idea. Just write it
Mhm.
out. I'll give another example. Dave Chappelle is one of my favorite comedians. In this recent tour that he did, he said one day, I think I can't remember how he phrased it, but his wife asked him about something like if anything happens to him, what will she do? A conversation about that came up and was like, if he goes to this safe, it ended up being a joking thing as usual. But if you go to this safe, you'll find a book with all my jokes. And I used that to say, a writer's most prized possession is that
Yep.
book where they write
Yep.
scrappy
Yep.
dates. It's not the
Yep.
perfect fun book that you see at the end. It's the scrappy things
Yep.
that you need to find. When I
Yeah.
used to do fine arts in high school, one of the most delightful things I used to do is go to my fine art teacher's table, and he gave us the key to his office when he's not there. On his table, he had scrappy drawings, small
Mm.
drawings, and they were just so motivational and just something about them spoke to me. So yes, right. Everything that comes to mind, right? It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be complete. Just right. I'm going to do
Yeah.
two more questions and then we'll wrap up for the sake of time. So someone asked, I'm aware that you published Caricature of Colors and She's Life. So my question is, what pushed you after writing the first book to write another one?
I'll talk about what pushed me to write the first one. So the only that you see here was the one that pushed me to write the first one because I would send lots of poems to her and I'd never wanted to write. And what she did was that she collected all those poems and into a book. So I'd written so much material and I was like, and then she's like, there you go. Like, this is a book. And I was like, oh,
Sweet.
wow. So I'm always grateful for that. And for the second one, I just thought, the second one came while I was writing the first one. So I looked at it, I looked at the material, and um, so I'm not. Do you need motivation for something you're passionate about? Like so, really, as I said before, the embers would be low, but um, it's a passion, and you pick yourself up again and do it. And it was very exhilarating the first one. So I had to have another adrenaline kick from the second one.
And you have
So
2 more that you're keeping from us, but we'll talk about that one later. Let's do one more question. Oh my God, the questions are just popping in right now. So let's do one more question and we'll wrap it up. This question is very interesting, although very simple. The person said, "How do you know when you're a poet, and what makes you feel like a poet?" I think this question is important because a lot of young writers and writers in their early phase, regardless of age, face this identity crisis of when can I now call myself a poet? It's not like being a doctor, whereby after going to school for a couple of years, then you can be called Doctor Swan. So how do you know when you're a poet or when you feel like you're a poet?
some people are doctors too, without going to school, right?
Yeah. Mm,
So, so how do you know that you're a human being?
mm,
Is it or when is the human being created? Is it when your parents are thinking about it? Is it when the it happens in the womb? Is it so? The question is, the proof is in the pudding. Like you get validations from people. You know that there's something about me. There's something about this thing I'm doing that that is not flippant. So people would validate you. You would be validated often. Even your spirit is gonna often drive you in that direction. Like this is what you are supposed to be doing. It's only if you are now faking it. Or you are not real to yourself, then those are other issues, those are other underlying issues. But you would know, like, and there are lots of mediocre people out there too, and I will not mention names, but 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 so people would know. You would know if you are faking it. You would know. You don't. If you are true to yourself, you'd know that this is a calling. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like somebody singing that doesn't have a good voice, and people are telling him, but no, you know how to arrange. You know how to get people together to to do a good composition. Then if you are listening, then you know that that is where your calling to is. So yeah, for me, it's that simple. As I say, it's that simple, but you just complicate it. So
yeah.
yeah.
One of the things I'll challenge the person that asked this question, anyone else, to do two things actually. There's a video of Ed Sheeran where he played when people he said people used to think he started out as a great singer, and then he played one of the terrible recordings that he had in his earliest years, and it was like, this is where I started from. Now this is the second challenge I'll have you do. Go and read Mastery by Robert Greene. You can have interest in something, you can have talent in something, but if you don't do the discipline and due diligence to master it, you end up being mediocre in it. So no one will come and assign you the title of a poet, but you have to do your due diligence in continuing writing, publishing your work, getting feedback, improving it, reading books, reading articles, reading anything. And don't limit yourself to poetry. Read everything that's available to you that you have the capacity to read and understand and gain insights on it. And I also challenge you, you can check not check, pursue the educational path to it. Some people do masters of in creative writing. That gives them the confidence and certification that, okay, now I can call myself a poet confidently. And with creative writing programs or even fellowships like the Spring Writing Fellowship, you get to be in a community of people who will read your works and provide constructive feedback for you to become a master of that particular genre or everything else that you're interested in. So it's a simple question, but a very great one for anyone starting out in their journey. I am going to end this event here. This has been so delightful, and I am very grateful from the bottom of my heart for that you granted us the request to interview you and also just answered our call when we reached out. Thank you so much to everyone that joined. Lanre, I'm going to leave it up to you. Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Do you have any final words for our audience?
Keep it simple.
That's the team simplicity.
But don't complicate your life. Stick to simplicity and understand that too much of confidence can lead to us to pride. So use that to check yourself. Yeah, so I would say that.
Ibukun is here. Ibukun is the director of Sprinng. Do you want to say hi to everyone?
Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining today's event. Thanks for engaging with Sprinng. Thanks for being a part of the community. We appreciate you, we love you, and we want to see more of you. And we hope you have an amazing weekend. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me. Cheers.
Bye.